My job here is apparently to give you a brief introduction into basic income. What is poverty? It says that you are poor if your income is less than 60% of the median income in your country. It describes poverty in absolute terms. It says that extreme poverty is when you have to live on less than $1.9 per day. And moderate poverty if you live on less than $3.1 per day. And then there's the United Nations description, which defines poverty in terms of human rights. Well, grammatically this is easier than it may seem in practice. There's this quote by Nelson Mandela that I really, really like because it describes, it hits it on the nail. It says that poverty is man-made. In all the previous descriptions, you describe poverty by having access to cash, to money. Money is man-made. You cannot eat money, as an Indian proverb says. Money doesn't have any intrinsic value. It only has the value that we collectively, or not so collectively, agree that it has. If we invented money as a way that makes accessing resources more efficient, then we can make it really efficient and make sure that everybody has access to it. So basic income is sort of an answer to that question. Basic income, as it says here, is a periodic cash payment unconditionally delivered to all on an individual basis without means test or work requirement. This is a definition of basic income by BN, the Basic Income Earth Network. So one is that it is periodic, that it's not given one-off, that the money is given at a periodic time reference. So for example, at the beginning of every month, is that it is given in cash, not in kind. So it's not the same as having a basic access to services or products that you need. It is simply a cash transfer. And then you decide how you're going to use it, because some people believe that we know better what our own needs are. It is received per individual, per person, and not per household or per family. That it is universal, that it doesn't require any means testing, which basically means that you don't have to prove that you need it because you're disabled, you're too old, for whatever reason, you have to prove to the state regularly that you need it. Is that it is unconditional, that it doesn't require you to perform a certain job or any kind of work, and it also doesn't require you to prove that you want to do so. In 2016, there was a think tank in Stockholm that released this report. They analyzed the military spending globally. They tried to reallocate the same amount of money into achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And they measured how much it would take, how much money it would take to achieve each and every of the Sustainable Development Goals if you just spend the money that you spend on the military. This is what they ended up with. They're measuring in the report all of them, but this is the one that is relevant. Poverty and hunger can be eliminated every year at 13% of the money we spend on military. If the question is, do we have enough money to deal with that? Hell yeah. What is work? To perform work or fulfill duties regularly for wages or salary. This is the basic idea that we have in our mind about work. It's linked directly to paid jobs. Now, to perform or carry through a task requiring sustained effort or continuous repeated operations. And third, to exert oneself physically or mentally, especially in sustained efforts, for a purpose or under compulsion or necessity. So the first definition links it directly to money. The other two, not directly, but usually when we refer to work, we think of jobs, right? Is this work? Is volunteering work? It takes effort, right? Is creating art that you're not aiming to sell? Is it work? Does it take work? Being a parent? It takes work, yeah? Let's see another definition of a job, a form of paid employment that is so completely pointless that even the employee cannot justify its existence, even though they feel obliged to pretend this is not the case. This is what David Graeber describes as bullshit job. Capitalism can be defined as doing work that we hate, to spend money that we don't have, in order to buy things that we don't need, in order to impress people that we don't like. This is a list of jobs that are in risk of being automated until 2030. You get the idea. Everything that is repetitive can and will be automated. These are the skills, how they change until 2030, the skills that are required in future jobs. So many are focused on technological skills, more related to digital skills, and social and emotional skills, and a lot less in physical and manual skills. What is work and what will be work? And I'm mentioning this only because money right now, in most countries, in most places, in most locations, is directly linked to paid work. Not every work that produces value is paid, and not every work that is paid produces value. Basic income is welfare. It is an investment in humans because basic income is based on the premise that we trust humans to know what is best for them. This is basic income.
Well, instead of just giving cash to certain people, why don't we give it to everyone? And I went, what? And she said, yeah. And I said, actually, yeah, targeting people's really expensive. So you're probably right. Let's just give it to everybody. But before we start, is it financially feasible? I think Antonis said it correctly. We actually know in our hearts we can do this. We can actually give everyone in the world some level of dignity. We don't need hundreds of millions of people starving, which is what's happening right now, and it's increasing. And we've got an aim of $10 a month for every single man, woman, and child on this planet. And why do we include children the same? Because we don't think it's welfare. We don't think it's an alternative to employment. We think it's a birthright, that it can rise to maybe $100 a month per person and beyond. We have a global commons, and the easiest way to think of the commons is think of 5,000 years ago, everything on this earth belonged to everybody. And what's happened over time is that the commons has taken and taken and taken all of the things that belong to all of us. Our intellectual property, the wealth that our ancestors created is captured by a very few people. But the one thing I'm going to emphasize today is that they have captured our air. They have polluted our atmosphere. And what I'm going to describe now is a solution to that existential threat. Possibly, maybe we've gone too far already, but the solution to it is also to provide the people of the world some compensation for them stealing not only our air, but also think about our land, our sea, etc. If you want to give $10 a month to everyone on this planet, it costs $1 trillion. How much was the military spending? I don't know how many times more than $1 trillion. All we have to do is capture 1.1% of global GDP. Your governments all over the world, I'm going to talk about my government, captures 33.3% of GDP in the UK. The 5 biggest companies on this planet, Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, which one have I missed out? Facebook, thank you. Why are they the 5 richest companies on our planet? Because they've taken our co-created data. We want it back. It should be in the public sphere. Carbon taxes or fees. Fees on the dividends should be global, not local. It's a global problem and it should have a global solution. There are very few fossil fuel extraction companies in the world. 100 of them account for 72% of all extraction. I think it's 200, it goes up to 84 or even higher. So if you think about it, if you want to enforce keeping the carbon in the ground, are we going to go around every country and say, oh, please do this, please do that, and we employ all these carbon accountants? No. Let's go to these companies and enforce it and make them keep it in the ground. They are all lobbying for a carbon tax. That's what they want. So what I'm saying is that if we play this game of only doing it country by country, the business as usual will carry on for longer. And we get this carbon fee. It's going to run out. You've got to end the scheme and return to what we have now, or we look at other global commons funding streams, bring them into action and turn it into a world basic income. If these dividends are renewable, you can immediately give it out as a basic income. Okay? So if it's hydro, you can give it out straight away, all those revenues. Because your future generations, your children, your grandchildren, your etc., can also get those revenues. Financial transaction taxes, land value taxes, they can be given away straight away. Things that are not renewable, they're extractive, mining, oil, overfishing, deforestation, they should be put into a fund, and you can only use the interest so that that fund stays the same size and your future generations benefit.